In any case, I've been in security about 17 years. Got started on a traditional application security team out in the Ohio area. From there, went into other areas, like I've been an IR manager, I've been a CISO. I've kind of seen the gamut through the years, built risk and compliance programs. That's kind of one of my wheelhouses. And then went to a product security team. And working on the product security team has been extremely interesting. Learned a lot from this team, and we got some really good processes and flow and automation together. And the key there is automation. We really actually were able to do it, which is pretty cool. So I'm just going to jump right into it. So the objective of this presentation is just to provide, again, an overview of what SDL is and highlight the best practices. It is not intended to be specific as far as tooling or what you should use to do SDL. That can be different depending on the organization and especially the size of the organization. SDL is Secure Development Lifecycle. So what it is it's baking security in. It's working with developers and engineers to bake security in from the get-go. And that way, just from the start to the end, you're going to have a little bit more security going into your products. SDL helps, again, to plan for better security features, requirements, avoid those last-minute surprises where everybody's scrambling at the end because they discovered something. It also helps reduce some of the development costs because, again, you're finding those bugs early throughout that process. And again, it enables teams to own security for their products, and that's the concept of security champions. We're lucky enough that at this organization we were able to train over 350 developers and engineers how to do threat modeling, their own scanning, and really get prepared for doing secure development. We bring in special trainers for them, and also our team put together our own training and made it available in automated fashion for them. So usually at one time we had about 103 champions, and even when folks leave the company now, they'll tell me that they promise and solemnly swear to build security no matter where they go, and I consider my job as done. So even though they're leaving us, that's fine, as long as they're going to be an advocate for security no matter where they go. I'm happy. Just from a life cycle perspective, this might look a little bit familiar to you. I'm going to talk about some of the different areas under each of these. We've got training, security requirements, design, implementation, verification, and release. And so I'll just talk about, again, some of these at a pretty high level. Training, as I mentioned, is super important. Training people on threat modeling. So if you saw in the threat modeling session this morning, and there's different approaches that you can take to threat modeling, depending on what that is. But again, that's helping train developers and engineers how to think from a security perspective. And I think on our team, that's where we've seen a lot of benefit. Writing accurate security user stories, again, training them and teaching them how to write those stories, and even, sometimes we'll jumpstart them and give them recommendations and ideas. And typically what I do, in any organization that I work at, I find that A+ Gold Star team, and I've got a couple of those teams that I used as an example. And I said, here's a team that's writing really solid stories, they've got a good structure, they repeat it easily, and then also what I do is I connect the TPMs. So if there's a TPM on that A+ Gold Star team that's got a great way to do it, I connect the other team that's coming up with the process, and they help each other. So it's really teaching the folks how to fish, and they really do help each other, which has been really cool. And this documentation teams do when available. Going through this process now, so that they know what they're familiar with. So it's really harder to find. So typically when it goes to the red team, they're doing a penetration test. They should only be looking for and finding those really hard things to find. They shouldn't have to be worried about finding a cross-site screw. Tells us that they're finding those types of guys, ran, trust but verify to remember. So just make sure that what's on the picture is really what is being implemented. And then you also want to identify any risk and implemented, what other mitigations can be implemented as part of that process as well. And also, kind of back to the risks too, if there's any risks that are going to end up residual risks and you're going to end up with that, that's when you're going to put them in your GRC kind of tool or risk register. From a release perspective, it's really a security approval process. And I've seen this done multiple ways. It depends again on the organization. A lot of times you'll see Jira used. So if your security team uses Jira, they might say, hey, we reviewed such and such application or service, and I approve it in these, or I'm only approving these 3 fields, not 5 fields. It's super important to keep this piece out of email because email goes into a black hole and it's not findable later down the road. I've actually been in a situation where I was able to go 2 years back and find a Jira ticket where somebody had done just that. They only approved 2 fields, they implemented 5 fields, and I could see it, I pointed to it and said right here, that's not what he said, so we gotta go back and fix this. So keep it out of email, keep it in some kind of process that works for your organization, that makes it easy to find, and it'll really save you in situations. Sometimes you'll see that as a change approval board too. There's a couple different gates. Think of these as also gates. So the change approval board, not every organization has them, but will tell you I've seen them in large organizations and I've seen them in small organizations can be effective. So if you have something like a change control board, make sure that security is part of that meeting, because that's when you hear what's going in and you can check and see and make sure that somebody on the security team knows that. And maybe that's just a simple question. Did anybody on the team look at this? Does anybody know that they're looking on this? So that's a really good way, an effective way to find things. Is it perfect and where you want to find it? No, not at all. But it will save you in certain situations again. So again, just try and make sure that some kind of approval process or gate is along the way there before you release it to production. And then from an agile perspective, for instance, we are in an agile environment, so there's a couple of different ways you can look at this. There's one-time activities, which are foundational requirements that are established at the start of every agile project. There's every sprint where essential SDL requirements that must be completed in each and every sprint. And then there's buckets. So there's SDL requirements that must be completed on a regular basis, but don't necessarily fit neatly into that process. And we'll talk about a couple of these. So I can't give you 6 screens. For one time, again, you want to complete the baseline design reviews. You're meeting with your teams. You've asked them to bring their design documents so you can look at the flow and what they're connecting to. You're establishing baseline security user stories, and you're establishing that baseline threat model. If they don't have a threat model, they just need to build an initial one. That's fine, that they can get their initial one built. And then they're logging and tracking identified defects or risks. For every sprint, where you're just kind of cycling through, again, you want to update the user stories for enhanced or change features, because when you start developing and then somebody changes their mind, the business wants to add another field, something changes on there, so you've got to update the user stories and update the threat model as well, just to encompass whatever the changes were. And then, again, running your scans. Run your SaaS, OSS scans, log and track. So that's every sprint. And then for the bucket, again, it's that attack surface review. You do that when it's applicable. And then the security training, again, when it's applicable, typically, of course, at the front end. So, for instance, we will not meet with any team unless they review our online on-demand videos for training SDL. So we want them to come prepared and know the terminology and know what they need to do, and it makes the meetings much, much more effective, and they can also do it on their own time. And then the security approval process. So again, those are those more buckety type things. That's all I have for SDL. I know that's very high level. Again, it's not specific to any kind of tools, but those are the basics, and that's the framework that you can apply no matter, again, what company you're in or where you work. And how deep you go into each of those things, again, depends on the organization, but that's the simple framework for it that you want to try and follow, so there's some kind of organization to the reviews. because we're talking about security rules, right? And then I'll just throw in from an infrastructure standpoint, when we do a quick triage and we know that there's infrastructure components available, we grab somebody from the infrastructure security team and they also become part of that review. So even though this is more specific from an infrastructure perspective, same thing. They follow the exact same thing. They're just looking for a couple of different items technically when they do the actual security review. So you can apply this to that as well. And they're part of that. And then we will have questions at the end. I'm going to let Jyothsna talk about some threat modeling pro tips. And I know if you were in Ty's sessions this morning, he went a little bit deeper into threat modeling, but we're just going to talk about those top things that you want to make sure you don't miss, because these could be bad things to miss and bad things happen. They are real world things that have resulted in known stories out there, and also things that we remind the teams of constantly, or that our advisors are looking for constantly as well. So we want you to be able to walk away with something you can apply right away, like these are the things you don't want to do. And with that, I'll give it to Jyothsna.
Hello everyone, my name is Jyothsna Lekkala, and today I'm going to talk about threat modeling overview and pro tips. Currently I'm working as a product security SDL advisor at GE. Before joining GE and before joining the security field, I was a full-time development background. Let's see what threat modeling is about and what are some theories. So people always ask, why should a threat model be created? So before we go to the why part, let's see what it is. Threat modeling is a structured way to identify, quantify and address the risks for your application. It's being proactive rather than reactive, and it gives you an attacker's point of view about your application. So why do we need it? We don't want security surprises later in the SDLC, and you want to have security built in to your SDLC. That way, security tech debt is not built up later on, and you'll find that a lot of time will be saved, and you can use the resources and time for making your application better instead of chasing the constant stream of security bugs. So there are a wide range of technologies to perform threat modeling, and it all depends upon your particular skill set and experience how you choose those tools. This is, while there are various school of thoughts, the most canonical one is called STRIDE. It stands for spoofing, tampering, repudiation, information disclosure, denial of service, and elevation of privilege. I'm not going to go into all the details, but basically you will depict your architecture using some data flow diagram, and you'll focus on applying the STRIDE on each interaction and find out what all threats are applicable for those interactions or the components itself. So this figure shows a common architecture for IoT system, especially in the domain of home automation. In the threat modeling context, this is a high-level data flow diagram showing different communication channels between different components. So if you want to threat model this architecture, you will decompose this further and apply different attributes and ask around different questions related to security and see what are all in place and what is missing, and then rank the risks and mitigate them. So coming to pro tips. Pro tip number 1, don't forget to consider any misuse or abuse cases. Suppose you are threat modeling and it identified something like denial of service threat, and that usually you do threat modeling with the security champion from development team in collaboration with the security team. So the development team might say, we already have high availability, so it's not a problem, but denial of service is not a problem. But denial of service could have other extensions like resource depletion or account lockouts. So if you are a new security engineer with not enough knowledge in security, how will you tackle this when somebody says they already have a mitigation? So here I'm showing you a threat activity flow. Usually the development team in collaboration with the security engineers follow steps number 1 to 4. It's a regular threat modeling activity. The pro tip here is once you identify the threats from any tool or whatever threat modeling activity you do, derive the abuse cases that are applicable for your application and refer some threat libraries like CAPEC. CAPEC is a common application, common attack pattern enumeration and classification. It has about 500 and odd attack patterns listed, and it has a lot of information like the classification, likelihood, the skill set required to perform an attack. There are mitigation solutions and there are related weaknesses. All the huge wealth of information is available in CAPEC. And here I'm just showing you a denial of service attack pattern from CAPEC, and it has all those extensions, and if you drill down you can see furthermore that are possible. And I know you cannot see all the details in the right side picture, but I just want to show you the wealth of information available there. So for any new security engineers who are beginning, or even the security champions from development background, this is how they can build the security knowledge. And even for security experts, they can use the common terminology for referring common attack patterns. So pro tip number 2, are the default settings providing any security? So I want to share a recent exploit example. Some security researchers have found that one of the SAP systems installations was delivered with an insecure setting, meaning customers can change that configuration setting to disallow fake application registrations in the systems. By not doing or by not securing that configuration setting, it allows fake applications to register, meaning attackers can do various kinds of attacks like man-in-the-middle attack, denial of service, change or modify data, etc. So, and even the research also found that 9 out of 10 customers were not changing that default security setting to enable security, even though there was a good documentation or they were alerted. So how can we catch such things during design phase? So if we are doing a threat model for SAP-like system, for example, if we are delivering SAP, make sure that we ask around during threat modeling whether the security settings are on by default. And pro tip number 3, don't forget any actors in the threat model. A recent breach occurred in an unnamed casino, which had a fish tank with the thermometer. The thermometer's purpose was to check the water temperature in the fish tank. But attackers found a way to attack that vulnerable thermometer and get into the network and stole our high-roller database, which had a huge impact on the casino. So how could we catch such things in the threat model? So when you're doing your infrastructure threat modeling, make sure you include all the actors. And the actors, by actors I mean all the components in your infrastructure or in your product design, or the clients like browser or the phone or TV or any other clients involved in the communication with your product. So that's the takeaway. Don't forget any actors in your threat model. Pro tip number 4. So threat models are living documents and need care and feeding. Why to update a threat model? You don't want a threat model that is not reflecting the current features. If you have a threat model that is 2 releases back, but your product in production is having other features, then you're missing a lot of threats. So you want to have your threat model reflecting exactly what is in production. And when should you do that? Whenever there is a change or new features added into your product or in your infrastructure, new components are added, make sure you update your threat model. And how do you do that? You can use GitHub, you can use GitHub versioning. There are other tools like GitHub. And where to store it? Again, you can use GitHub or other storage places where it is secure and has restricted access. Pro tip number 5. Yeah, threat modeling, you did your threat modeling. What should you do with the identified threats inside your threat model? Suppose your threat modeling has identified a threat called missing authentication. What do you do after that? It doesn't serve well if you just leave it like that. After all, threat modeling is just abstraction for your product's architecture. You want to take an action after you identify those threats. So the recommended practice is document all your identified threats, determine the risk level, and follow with the risk owner until closure. You can use a risk management framework to do this, but make sure you close on the risk identified. And pro tip number 6, every environment is unique. Suppose you have your deployments in different cloud providers like AWS Cloud or Azure or the regular AWS. The services could have, they could be very much related, but the functionality is different and the configuration settings are different. So you want to catch all of them during threat modeling. Also, most important is cloud providers per contract. They say it's a shared security model, so you are responsible for maintaining the security posture for your deployment. So it is advised to do threat model for each environment separately. That's all. Thank you for your time. We are open for question and answers.
Any questions? Well, that sounds really useful. But it also sounds like it's fun. How do you guys actually convince anyone?
It's not easy. No, again, culturally, it could be a huge challenge. Again, I've seen it work in big organizations. Would I have done this, or could I have done this in my previous company? Absolutely not. There is no way. So then you pick and choose pieces, parts, and then it comes down to risk management. Where are your biggest risks, and how do you want to approach it? So again, it depends on the environment. We had, trust me, we had naysayers. I had people who were like, I hate security. And again, I've been doing this for so long. People, when they tell me I hate security, I literally laugh. And no joke, I laugh. And I'll just be like, you know what, no problem, we'll get you to the dark side. You'll be there. And I'll tell you when you feel like you won is when, you know, I'm walking through a team and I'm like, they're like, oh, hey, I need to redo my threat model or whatever. And it's like, do you need help? And they're like, nope, I got it. And I'm like, success. And then we also had one guy, very scratchy kind of guy, and, you know, very like, you're slowing me down, blah, 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 whatever. So when I had the red team come in and they did specialized training showing the threats they're really finding and how to do it in the front row. And he sat in the front row, asked tons of questions, really got a lot out of it. He had his whole team come over to the session I just had with the red team when they came over. And again, those guys were really seeing the value. And I also sell security. So I've been selling security internally to non-security people forever. And I'm like, look, if you become a champion, that's a resume thing. You put that on your resume. You've done threat modeling. You know how to do security scanning. That's huge. And guess what? We have a 0 unemployment rate. And I actually will say those exact words, and people always go, oh, yeah, it's true. And I'm like, yeah, there you go. So, you know, this is a resume building opportunity for them. Now, when it comes to, we don't want to make anything harder for them either. So I will say Jyothsna is one of our best automation people on our security team. So when it comes to how you engage us, I grabbed a tool that was super easy to do, put in a request. We set up a triage playbook twice a week, 30 minutes, get it done. We assign it to an advisor. We shoot an email to the people. Hey, meet with so-and-so or Jyothsna or whoever to review your stuff. Before you do that, look at our online videos. And we had to do the work up front. We had to record all those. And it really wasn't that hard. It was just getting the time, having people do the time, record them, get them uploaded to a location where everybody in the organization can reach them. That's kind of important too, because sometimes that can be hard. Have them review those before they meet, and they do it. Now, we also had to have top-down leadership support, right? Never going to get this done without top-down leadership support. So it was coming down from the top, thou shalt do SDL and security reviews. And they would not get the customers they needed if they didn't do it. And it also came down to that. There's no way they're going to get the customers if they're not able to prove that they do this. So that was another thing that helped us. So again, it depends on the company, the environment, the customers they're going after. But those are there's little tricks and tips and things like that you can do. But when it comes to really getting people to do it, and again, if it's too hard, I've also made them stakeholders. So to answer your question, I made them stakeholders. So my online form that they fill out, they were the reviewers of it. I didn't just put it out there. I built it, and then I went to several of them and I said, what do you want to change? What do you want to change? And I used a change where I didn't need a developer. I could make the change with a GUI. On the fly, I could make the change to the tool. And I could say, you want this word to say, what, is this better? And then I would show them right away, yes, that's better. So they were part of the design of that intake form. They are reviewers of, we just built threat model templates to help make it faster for them to drag and drop infrastructure components. We just didn't roll that out. We had somebody review it and try and use it. And if they couldn't use it, then we've already failed. If they don't understand it, and if they can't use it, we fail. So we always, policies, I can't even tell you guys how many policies and stuff I've written. I don't ever publish those. I make people read them. If they don't understand it, I failed. So I make them a stakeholder and part of it, and I think that's another reason we were able to get so many people behind us, is that they know they can come to me at any time and say, I don't understand this, I can't find that, this scanner isn't working right, we keep getting false positives, whatever it is, they know that they're going to be part of it. And we actually have those people on our vendor calls. We have a vendor call every single week with one of the scanners we use. And any of those engineers or whatever that's using that scanner or reviewing those scans, if they've got a problem with it, we make them part of the call. They're actually talking to the vendor themselves. And we gave them the ability to put a JIRA ticket right in with that vendor at the vendor. So if I'm a developer and I've got a problem with the scanner, I can go right out to that JIRA system for that vendor and put in a bug if they think they discover something. So we're trying to streamline a lot of that communication and cut out some of those layers that typically you run into. And again, I'm completely fine with that and at home with that. I'd rather, get the communication and make them part of it. But I think that they feel like they own it, or they're part owner. And so, yeah, the mandate came down from top down. But then from bottom up, we said, you own this, and you're part of this, and you're helping me decide the words. So, I think that went a long way.
So it sounds like you did an insane amount. That's amazing of you. How long did it take you to get that process actually working and rolling?
I'd say solid year. Within a year, when I rolled in, I've been there 2 years. So when I rolled in, they already had the basics built, and they already had the presentations built. Here's what we want to do. They already knew what scanners they wanted to use. So when I came in, it was more like, get out of email. Everything's got to get out of email. And then we really got these guys trained, got to get them trained. And it was more kind of bringing everything together. So we're just kind of going over pieces, parts where they were kind of building together. Got some playbooks, got that intake kind of going. And that took about a year, and then a little over a year ago, a year and a half ago actually, I got the intake ready to roll because they were rolling out a completely different way to do releases. And I knew I had till January 1st of that year. And thank God, because I built it and they came. And, it wasn't in emails, it wasn't weird or anything like that. And now we're to the point, we're probably at capability maturity 4, a solid 4, and that's industry, compared against the industry. So we're really proud of that. Again, I know I could go somewhere else tomorrow and do the same thing. It depends on the team and all those pieces, parts coming together. that you've got. But it depends on the org, but it took probably a good year, and now we're in that mode where it's like, what do we want to use? And so now I've got the red team coming to do container security with the developers and engineers. So we're continuing that training with them. And again, I keep telling these guys, you know, hey, it's a resume builder. You need to learn how to do this no matter where you want to work. And then the last time the red team came, I got challenge wins. We did a CTF. You know, trying to make it fun for them too. And, you know, some people came to the security team from developers and engineers and stuff. So, and then again, when they promise me they're going to keep doing security when they leave, I feel like I won anyway. Good question.
Are these slides going to be available?
Yeah, I'll ask Matt how he's doing that, but there's nothing proprietary in these slides. It's nothing that's GE specific or anything. These are standard frameworks and standard direction. Again, applicable and tweakable depending on the organization that you're part of, which is kind of a nice guideline. And again, the key around a lot of this stuff is the automation piece of it. Like our scanners are actually built into the pipeline. So when a developer goes in to do their build, they can actually choose the DAS scanner, the OSS scanner, as they're checking their build. It's going to roll in. We work a partnership, I should call this out, partnership with other teams is critical. We would not have been this successful without our DevOps team. They are phenomenal, amazing people that love security, don't run from us, and don't hate us. So that's been super awesome after all these years to work with a team like that. I've learned so much from those guys. And I actually made them approvers of any vendor contract when it comes to the scanners because they're the ones deploying and scaling it. So we can't buy something without making sure that they can manage it. And it's going to work, right? We don't want to get something that's not going to work. So those guys have been phenomenal at working with. So having a partner, especially in the DevOps side, for implementing any kind of automation around any of this stuff has been critical. For the threat modeling, I know, again, it's not scalable in a lot of organizations or situations, but the Microsoft tool does allow you to create stencils. Now, we're a Mac shop, so you got to download a VM, and you got to run the VM and all that stuff. But what we did is we even had a tech writer help us write the stencils. We did the threat research on the individual threats that we wanted to be able to drag and drop, but she wrote it for us. So again, you can do it, and that stuff can be done. But again, and I sold it by telling the guys, hey, you know, I want you to be able to just drag and drop AWS components down in your threat model. So you can do the code pieces, but you've also got the structure pieces. So again, trying to make it easy for them. Well, anything that you have to use a VM. If you use, there's a lot, like Ty talked about, a lot of different tools are out there. We use the Microsoft threat modeling tool because it's free. So if your budgets are limited, you can use that. He uses whiteboards. He just does it on a whiteboard, or maybe they're doing some kind of diagramming. I'm not sure. But it's the bottom line with threat modeling is it's helping you identify risks and stuff. So.
It's another way of threat modeling. The one Microsoft threat model uses is called STRIDE for element. STRIDE, spoofing, tampering, repudiation, information disclosure, denial of service, and equation privilege. That's what I showed in my slides with the big table. So Microsoft threat model uses STRIDE, and attack map is a different way of doing threat modeling. It will see. You will have a list of attacks and you will see whether those are applicable for your interaction in your architecture. So it's a different way of addressing threat model, basically.
Ty's first hour, he has one slide where he lists all of them. So he's got stride and something else at the top all the way down. And yeah, and he's used like several of those. Again, I think again it depends on the company and organization. Yeah, exactly. Question? Anything? question is, how do you track all of these reviews? And that's an excellent question. So in previous lives, I used Jira, which makes it the easiest. Actually, even way when I first got into it, we use a web front end with an Access database. I mean, you can even do it that way, but at least it was in there and you could get out the data and the information for the risk review, but that's when security was just kind of getting important. But Jira seemed, I personally, again, let's throw tools out there, but I think Jira's pretty easy to use, and I like the way it does watchers and stuff. Unfortunately, we don't have that ability, and it's in the company, but I can't use it. I have to use a different tool for that. So what I did again was I made friends and bought a lot of cookies, and I'm not joking, I bought a lot of cookies for the guy who manages this tool called Rally, and it's this, but he created custom fields for me. So I had him in our tickets that our team uses, we have special fields that I had him create that actually put in a date that all of these phases were done. And then we also check if a pen test is needed because it pops out of us a little bit. And then I also had him put a custom field in to pull the organization so you can run metrics on what organizations have done a security review and what project. And again, we created a playbook that had a specific nomenclature. So at the top of every ticket that we open for our team to do a review, it says SDL : the org, and then the name of the project. Because again, the organization is so big and things change so much, I learned how that tool does searching capability. And that's another reason I did that. Anything you put in the search box, you can find in the description area. And once I discovered that, I made sure we had enough data in the description area to always find a name of a project or an area. Yeah, I mean, Jira, yeah, lucky. So yeah, Jira's what I would typically use, but for this, we're just using this. Now my intake comes into a different system, and typically you hook it in, and I wasn't able to do hooks for different reasons. Some people use ServiceNow for that, but that's, I think, a little tough to use. I'm not about making it harder, I'm about making it easier. And I'm a time management freak, so if it takes too long to open a ticket, then we're gonna go back to some other way. You know, you have to do that. You don't have time these days. But that's a good question too. And again, different companies have different ways of logging information. The key is just knowing you can find it. Good questions. Anything else about what we have to do? And if you think about it later, not a problem. You can always find us on LinkedIn. Feel free to shoot us a note.